It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. Today we got something which looks very, very special. It's from Franciscan in Ireland. And it's a bottle of their premium stout, which has been aged in Jameson Irish whiskey casks. Look at that. Now, a lot of you will be aware that this company is owned by Molson Coors, which of course makes Carling, and it makes Coors Light and Coors, and it also makes Doomba, which is a very nice session ale in the UK. And they, as I mentioned, they're the owners of Franciscan Well. So, Jameson Irish whiskey casks. So basically, as I understand, this one's 8.4% ABV. Now, as I understand, it's generally the rule that about 3% of the alcohol by volume will soak back from the Jamesons, or the whiskey casks, will soak back into the beer. Now, I was with Martin Cornell, beer historian, and he said years ago they used to fill up a barrel, an old whiskey cask. They used to fill it up with water, seal it off, roll it round, and they used to be able to get this water up to about 30-40%, which is bizarre. It's really bizarre. So I imagine they brewed a stout at about 5.5%, maybe 6%, and they put it in this Jameson whiskey cask, and obviously they didn't roll it around because it would be a 43% whiskey stout. What they did was they probably just left it stand still for 6 months, and naturally the whiskey in the oak soaked back into the beer. Doesn't that sound fantastic? So, let's get the beer out into a glass and see what we get. If I'm wrong about this at all, please let me know. Woo! Fantastic. Fantastic. At this stage of the review, let's first of all, Did you like that glug? I did. I wanted to kind of turn this into a beer review stroke discussion. We'll get into the discussion later on, but I guess you guys know where we're going to go with it. But first of all, let's look at the quality of this beer. Let's look at the beer in the glass. It's a 3 to 4 finger tan coloured head. And it's what I would call a Scandinavian style imperial stout. It's when a beer has great body, and it's got such a great body and such lovely carbonation that it creates this lovely fluffy tan coloured head. And I only seem to get a lot of this style of head and this beer from Sweden, Norway, Denmark, the Scandinavian countries. So I decided to kind of coin the phrase Scandinavian style stout, imperial stout, and this fits in this bracket. So lovely carbonation. It's a fantastic looking beer. It's jet black in the glass. Let's get the aroma. Let's see if we can pick up some of that Jameson whiskey and a lot of that stout. I'm picking up so many different flavours. So I was about to talk about the brown sugar, then I was about to talk about the dark malt, then I was about to talk about the toffee, then I was about to talk about the tobacco smoke. And I could go on. I could talk about the espresso coffee, I could talk about the dark chocolate, I could talk about a little bit of milk chocolate. It's such a complex beer. I could talk to you about the oak. I could talk to you about the whiskey. But I won't do any of that talking because I've just kind of explained everything. I'm going to dive in. Cheers. Ooh. You get a big punch of whiskey on the end, and the reason why I'm kind of screwing my face up a little bit is that I'm not the greatest lover of whiskey. I think the beer it could have more body. It could be a bit bolder. It could be that stout really for me. It created a great head. I was absolutely convinced that the way that kind of head created, it was going to be a big, thick, gloopy, viscous, chocolatey kind of mouthfeel beer. Lovely mouthfeel. But to be honest with you, if I'm perfectly honest, it's quite thin. It's quite a thin beer. And my explanation earlier, with it being like a 5.5%, 6% stout that's gone into a whiskey cask, that would kind of make a lot of sense. Because as I mentioned earlier, that generally a 5.5%, 6% stout may not have that amount of kind of malt that's gone into the beer to create the alcohol. So it's not as big and bold as I might have expected. It's more like a dry stout, an American dry stout. You still get a lot of that malt, you still got a lot of that roasted malt, that tobacco smoke, that kind of cappuccino taste. It's nicely carbonated, it's very drinkable. It's very stout-like. And then of course the whiskey kicks in, the oak, the whiskey. But for me personally, I think the beer could very well have a much better mouthfeel to it. I just kind of wish it kind of pulled it off. I really wish it pulled it off. For a few reasons, and I'm going to put the glass down. I'm going to tell you. Where do I start with this? First of all, let's start with a slightly different topic. I want to thank my fellow kind of beer colleague and friend Stuart Howe, and I want to congratulate Stuart Howe. He's moving from Molson Coors and he's going to Butcombe Brewery. It nearly slipped my mind. He's going to Butcombe Brewery. He's going to go and brew their bitter. He's going to brew Butcombe bitter. No, he's not. He's going to be the kind of the director of brewing. I'm sure he's going to be involved with a lot of the new exciting craft stuff that Butcombe got going on. I'm pretty sure he'll be bringing out some IPAs and some pale ales and some Belgian quads and all of the great things that Stuart Howe probably wanted to do while he was at Sharps, but was slightly restricted in doing it. If you watch some of my beer reviews from when I was at Sharps Brewery, I went down and I brewed a black IPA with him. It was a very nice tasting black IPA, a very good tasting black IPA. But while we were there, they were brewing a lot of Doom Bar, and they were extending the Sharps Brewery at a massive pace. I mean, if you watch the review, the Sharps Brewery tour video, you can see there's actually angle grinders in there, and they're extending the brewery all the time. And that's predominantly for Doombar, because Doombar is now the UK's #1 selling cask ale. So they have to produce that beer more or less 24 hours a day. And that tied Stuart's hands behind his back, because he's a very good brewer. And the reason I know this is because I went into his cellar, and you might kind of know a few of, you might have watched a few of the other beer reviews where we reviewed some of his weird and wonderful beers that he brewed with Adrian Teddy-Jones, Melissa Cole, and some of the beers he just brewed himself. They were excellent, really, really good brews. So no doubt, with Stuart Howe now going over to Buxton, what am I talking about? Butcombe. Stuart's probably going to have a lot of ideas, and he's going to probably have a lot of free time to do exactly what Stuart Howe wants to do. Like produce a Woodlouse beer. He went down to London, he brewed with a small London brewery, and he produced a Woodlouse beer. And I think it's perfect. It's perfect for Stuart Howe's sense of humour. Because I kind of share the same sense of humour as he does. And we'll leave it there. Next topic I want to talk about is, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the review, Molson Coors owning Franciscan Well. Some of you out there, you will call it craft versus crafty. You'll say that Molson Coors has no place in the craft beer world, and on the basis of this beer, I wanted to be honest, I wanted to be blown away by this beer, but unfortunately I'm not. I'm really not. A lot of the times, a big company like Molson Coors can afford to have the word Jameson written on the label, saying that, you know, it's aged in Jameson whiskey casks. Normally a brewery would brew a beer and it would say barrel aged imperial stout or oak aged imperial stout, but they wouldn't actually have that kind of finance to actually put the name Jameson or Jack Daniels or whatever on the label. And that's where, not alarm bells, but I really thought it was going to be a good beer. I really did. It's a lovely large bottle. It's the Jameson kind of name. It's the Franciscan Well. It's got a nice swing top, and I genuinely thought that it was going to be a fantastic beer, even when I poured it. But the stout is just not there. For me, the stout is just, it's just a name on a bottle label. The stout needed to be a lot more bold. It needed to be powerful. It needed to be full of chocolate and arrogance and cappuccino, and just to battle that kind of Jameson whiskey cask flavour. But unfortunately you get kind of inklings of stout, and then you get a whole whack of Jamesons on the back end. It's a shame. It's a real shame. As I mentioned, I wanted to like it for a few reasons, but I gotta be honest. I'm afraid I've gotta be honest with this beer. I think if they brought out Franciscan Well Premium Stout aged in Jameson whiskey casks #2, then I think it would probably be about 13%. And the reason why it would be 13% is because they would have probably put a lot more, yeah, go on, I'm going to say it. They're going to put a lot more effort into the stout. And when you do that, when you knock a stout up to 9-10% ABV, and then you dump it into a a Jameson whiskey cask, you're going to get that beer up to about 13%, 11, 12, 13%. So for now, it's a bit of a letdown. It really is. I'm going to rate it. And yeah, it's just the whiskey's overpowering the stout, and I've never come across that before in a barrel-aged beer. Certainly a barrel-aged stout, or porter, or whatever you want to call it. It's poor, to be honest. It's quite poor. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. It's a 5 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. Put your comments in the comments box. Please subscribe to our daily beer reviews, and cheers.